All right, what's going on, everybody? I know I'm a little bit late, but you have to excuse me. I don't do this in the day to day, but when I can, I'm going to get it in where I fit it in, right? Pause. Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. So, welcome to another episode of a Value Conversation Gen X Spoken Word. So, if you don't know right about now what I'm going through, I'm actually trying out StreamYard. Now, the only reason that I'm doing this right now is because of the fact that it was kind of shoddy the last time around that we did this. So, because of the fact that I had Player One and Carl Anderson giving me grief about Boost Mobile, you assholes, I am going ahead and doing the proper thing right about now, which is again checking out something that I can roll with for the time being. Because that laptop of mine, it's a nice one, but it's production and not really made for content. So this is where we're going to roam out for a little while and kind of like what's going on. I'm getting accustomed to it. So there'll be a little bit more that I'll do with this, and I may even start producing some shorts. So I'm going to get further down the road here. But also, let me put this one last bit in here to Fatty and Dwight. You guys had only known each other for 3 minutes before you start clowning my shut up, you jackasses. But anyway, nobody likes a shamer. But as Fatty said, hey, shame is good, right? But be that as it may, yeah, I like what we got here. So let's go ahead and get on with it because I know it's late. Some of you may have to get up early in the morning. And anybody on the West Coast, hey, please check it out. If you're over in Germany, France, or Europe, good morning to you. Always replay game. You know it's going to be here when you get up when you get time, all right? So, what do we want to talk about tonight? So, I'm not going to hold everybody too long because, again, I wasn't expecting to get out here and get this done, but I've got to get my watch hours in. So, what I want to talk to everybody today or tonight, depending on where you are, we're going to look at what I call the 5 step sensory dating approach. Now, I've covered this before, but what I want to do is build a little bit more meat around it, kind of flesh this out. So, I find too many times when I'm watching people on some of these panels out here and where they're getting their information from, I'm listening to the people that are giving out the information. I'm looking at them and I'm not hearing anything that sounds consistent with anyone who's actually trying to help someone build a foundation for a relationship. What I hear mostly are pickup artists. It's like when you're listening to a guy talking like, yeah, man, if you want to get this girl, man, you got to make sure that she gets on your program. You're not looking at what she's got going on. She's going to be looking at what you got going on. She needs to get with what you got and make it happen. All right. That's how you need to roll. I'm listening to this, and there's a level of inconsistency that's coming out. Now, keep in mind, this is the same guy who's talking about helping the guy figure out how to talk to ladies, but at the same time, man, you got to look at these bitches like such and such. And I'm not really one to really see any value in that. But it depends upon where you are and how you relate to whoever's talking to you. Hey, if the information is good, work with it. But what are you actually getting for that time being spent, right? But not to go too far, let's go ahead and back it up a bit. So the first thing I'll say um, is there any thought given towards your expectations? Now, when I say expectations, clearly, what are you looking to get out of this? So when you make that first approach, let's think about this. Are we talking about sex? Does it matter to you? Um, any age, all right? No matter if you're 25, 35, 45, even coming up on 55, sex is going to be one of those things that's going to be on your mind. You're going to be thinking about, hey, what are we going to do for me to get in here? What's it going to take for us to make this happen? That's still going to be something that you're going to be looking for. Hey, Don, good morning to you. I figured that you may be getting up and getting ready for work. So, as always, hey, you can always check out the replay a little bit later, or if you're going to stick in here for a little bit of time with me, please, by all means, give me a little bit of feedback if you want. All right. All right. So, moving on here, here's the second thing, the expense. what's it going to cost you? And also, let's give some thoughts to the particular scenario. How are you going to have this set up? Is it going to be a situationship or is it going to be an entanglement? So we'll come back to that in just a moment. So, as I was saying, if we look at it from sex, when we were back in our mid 20s, or let's go back about 20, 25 years, we already knew that at some point in time, yeah, I'm going to be looking for something to come out of the evening. Now, this is just the guys. Now, I don't know what the girls are thinking because I'm not a girl. However, if you were trying to make your play, sooner or later, when you got old enough or you made enough mistakes in the dating relationship game, you realize that I might not want to put too much pressure on her. So, what was one of the better ways of reducing the pressure so there's not this expectation of sex at the end of the night? Well, we could always go Dutch back in the day. Now, when you got to some place with the girl, you ask the question, "Hey, you want to go Dutch?" Or you may pay for it. But if you say, "Hey, you want to go Dutch," it takes it down just a notch because as of right now, she's not worrying about you trying to force her into anything because you're doing all the paying. You're not putting money down for the night out. You're not paying for your gas, which comes up. He's not talking about the dinner. That's none of that concern that is on her mind now. So when you go ahead and say, "Hey, let's go ahead and go Dutch. I pay for my stuff, you pay for your stuff." Now that means that she's not worrying about, well, am I going to have to drop? Hell, am I going to have to drop by the time the night's over with? Or is this something that's going to be an expectation if we go out again? So that's not something that I see that's done a lot today because if a guy's not paying, the first thing you hear is, "Oh, what are you broke? What are you brokey? If you can't afford this, why are you out with me to begin with?" First off, the question I need to ask is, do you have enough money to pay for you? Now, that's not saying that he's going to go out looking to ask her, "Hey, you want to go Dutch?" Because sometimes as a man, when you invite a female out, well, I invited you out. I need to make sure that I take care of this. But there needs to be grace from her, recognizing that if he is inviting her out, it doesn't mean that she tries to run the whole list. And when I say run the list, I'm talking about run the menu. But still, backing up. Oh, Joe Manat, what's good, man? Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, I know it's late, so again, I want everybody to excuse me, but get it in where you fit it in, right? So again, as a guy inviting her out, hey, don't run the pockets. Now, if he's got cash, he'll take care of it. But what determines how the evening goes is going to be a level of grace being shown by her, also working within the confines of what's happening inside of the situation right then and there. Gauge it for what it is. Don't try and turn it into something, as I've heard some women say, "Oh, well, I need to go ahead and upgrade his experience." And when I say upgrade experience, I've seen videos where women have said, "Hey, girl, if he wants to take you out for a coffee date, you need to let him know, no, we ain't doing this. Because what if you've done, if you spent $100 something on your nails, another 200 on your hair, and then another whatever on your makeup? No, he's not getting away at coffee. You need to redirect this experience and make him update the date." So now what's happening is instead of you going out to someplace that he's chosen, most likely after conversation with you, and you were good enough to say yes, now you change your minds, ladies, and say, "Well, no, let's go to X restaurant." So now we're going from one side of town to another just because of the fact, well, I don't want to have coffee. I want to go out and eat. There's a good place we can go for lunch. Here, check this out. Get back and let me know once you got the arrangements or you've made reservations. It's like, hold up, girl. This is not what what the damn game plan was. But this is what you will deal with sometimes inside of this dating arena nowadays. But like I said before, you go back about 20, 25 years ago, you get to the spot, you say, "Hey, Dutch," and it's cool with everybody. So that's a bit of a contrast looking at then versus now. All right, so now once we get past the whole thing of let's say sex, what to expect, well, there's no issue because we're talking about Dutch, which means that we take some of the pressure off. You don't expect anything. I'm not pushing you to expect anything. Let's just see where this goes. Now we're going to be talking about what type of scenario are we looking at. So let's say that you guys have gone out 3, 4 times. At some point in time now, there's going to be the idea of, well, hey, let's go ahead and talk about a little something. So that's when you start getting serious. That's when you have to really take an approach and look at what's coming into the scenario. When I say coming into the scenario, I'm talking about when you two are actually getting to a point to where there may be a little bit of physical get together going on. But before it even gets there, let's back up 1 or 2 steps. You have to take a look at yourself and ask, what am I bringing here? Am I going to give what I'm expecting to come back to me? So this is where we get into that part where I talk about the 5-step sensory approach. Now, it's nothing over fantastic or anything like that, nothing over the top, but it's simply looking at you, head to toe. What is it that you bring just in and of yourself? Now, when I say that, we'll start with the first thing. Now, the first thing being sight, and that is going to be the lead off factor because everybody should know at a certain point in time, it doesn't matter what you say or do. If you are not something or somebody that another person can imagine waking up next to, walking down the street with, holding hands with, through a shopping mall, beach, whatever the scenario may be. If you are not that person that someone is going to be imagining, then all else is for naught. So we're talking about the 5 basic human senses. That makes it real easy to start with. So we'll start with sight because that's the first thing that we deal with. What do we see? Now, if I'm walking someplace and I happen to see someone that catches my eye, the first thing that comes to my mind after I see her is, okay, I need to walk up and have a conversation. I need to say something. Because the last thing you want to do is sit there and watch this person walk by, and then you spend the rest of the day, the week, the month, or whatever, regretting not taking the time to say something. So you need to make sure that you cultivate something to do with current events. Find a topic that you may feel might be appropriate for both of you. Think of music. I don't know, the latest movie. If you read books, find something that may be your segue. Find some way to lead into it. But again, sight is going to be the first thing. So therefore, what are you going to do? Make sure that you take care of yourself. Let's talk about hands, fellas. Believe it or not, women will check your hands out. I have been out on a few dates where a woman has said to me, "Oh, I like your manicure." So yeah, I take care of that. You don't want rough hands. You don't want dirt under your fingernails, anything like that. You don't want jagged nails. You want everything to be straight to a point to where it shows that you are concerned about your appearance. Now, right now, I have to say that when I was younger, I didn't give any type of thought about a manicured appearance. Didn't think anything of it. Went across my face with a razor, got my hair cut, and boom, I jetted. Every now and then I'd have a woman say something like, "Hey, you know what? Your hands are kind of rough." Now, this is back when I was in the gym about maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week, to where it's just overly calloused. And then you talking about, grabbing, spanking, or whatever. And then you've got rough hands. I had a girlfriend of mine said, "Here, give me your hands." And I ran my hand across my own arm, like, "Oh, damn, girl." She said, "Yeah, that's what it feels like when you put your hands on me." I said, "Oh, okay." I didn't do anything about it. But I'm just letting you know right now, it may help if you give that type of consideration because after she told me that, we were probably together for another 2 or 3 weeks and I was out of there. Maybe I should have done something about my hands. But anyway, manicure your hands, all right? Your feet. That's another thing, guys. You can't walk around these eagle talons on your foots, right? You can't do that because nothing will mess an evening up faster than anything if you scratch her with one of your old filthy toenails. Don't do it. Take some time and get yourself straight, fellas. And if any of the ladies are checking this out, whether you're in here right now or maybe in the replay, go ahead and let these guys know You need to do some manicure, trim your fingernails, trim your toenails. Put a little lotion on your skin. You can't be dry and rubbing up against it either. All right. You got to make sure that you go ahead and do some of these things because it goes a lot further than you would actually believe. Now, I only know this right now because of where I am in my age, to whereas I get the benefits from that. I hear about it, I'm told about it. So therefore, do it younger. That's all I'm saying. Get into a habit of doing these things. There's dividends. All right. So once you've taken care of your manicure, you're taking care of your hands, your feet. Now you're taking care of your face. You're making sure that you're doing something with your skin. You don't want to have your oily skin just sitting there, just stacked on your face or anything like that. You don't want your skin to be splotchy either. You want to try and do what you can to clear it out. So there's a lot of products that are out there that can help with this. Take care of your skin. Years ago, when I was about 24, 25, there was a guy I was stationed with. His name was Ian Eccles. And Ian used to tell me all the time, your face is your passport. Now I didn't worry about that too much because I was in the midst of my dating and I was getting it in. I didn't worry about my face. Like I said, I didn't worry about my fingernails. I didn't worry about too much of anything because I was in the gym and girls wanted to talk to me. So I told him, what about my face being my passport? And my body does the talking for me. But as you get older, certain things start going to the wayside. Not saying that that's me, but not everybody can say that, but still, your face is your passport. So that's the first thing that you want to put a lot of attention into next to the rest of your physicality. Now, also, teeth. You got to stay on that. Brush, brush, brush. You cannot be a yuck mouth. Now, if you can at some point in time with today's modern technology, do something about issues with, let's say, if you have a raggedy smile. I used to have a gap that was in between my two front teeth for the last 40 some odd years. And I remember the day that I ruined my teeth. I was outside when I was about 8 or 9 playing football with some friends of mine, and I caught a pass. I wasn't paying attention and ran right into a tree. Boop. And that gap just stayed there. So I didn't think about it too much until one day I decided, you know what, I'm tired of food getting caught on my teeth. I'm tired of food just, in certain places and gaps where you just feel your teeth turning. I went ahead and got Invisalign. Best investment I made. Sure, it cost me about 7 grand, but the thing here is that it's still my teeth. All I did was keep them clean, but I had to do something to get the spaces out, to get them turned around, to get them right so I could have the smile that I have right now, because your smile will also do wonders for you. Sure, I had a good smile before because my teeth were straight, somewhat-ish, but I had too many spaces here and there that you really couldn't see, that when I was eating food, they were caught in here. It was an annoyance to me. Always there's a toothpick here and there, but nonetheless, you take care of those things and they're not an issue later. So I would damn well recommend Invisalign. Work it. All right, so enough about sight. We talked about sound. If not, sound is going to be the next thing. Remember, I talked about having a conversation, being able to speak with it. SD, what's good now? Having the ability to have a conversation, having also the capability to speak of current events, to be able to hold an intelligent conversation that extends past LeBron versus Jordan versus Kobe, new shoes that are out right about now, the new LPs, new albums, um, just all this superfluous stuff. At some point in time, you want to be able to have a grown folks conversation. So take time to think about what you're going to say. Also, as I said before, let's move back a little bit. Avoid working with nothing more than pickup lines. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself right now. We'll just back it up for a second. Hey, anybody in the chat right about now, feel free to throw some questions out here and I'll answer them as best as possible. So let's make a little bit of what's going on with this time frame. Again, this is not too much of a throwaway show, but because I'm getting myself familiar with StreamYard, I just wanted to get out here and just throw a little something at the folks. And if you got any questions, throw something out. Yes, ma'am, you are absolutely right, Don. Intelligent conversation is underrated. Nothing worse than trying to talk to somebody who doesn't meet you at your level of conversation. Doesn't mean that they're a bad person, but you have to think about what are their interests. And if you don't share interests, then there's a possibility you're going to have problems from there. Concepts that people don't think about is that you need to have complementary styles, but we'll get to that in just a second. But yes, you're absolutely right, Don. Intelligent conversation is underrated by most folks, but that also is going to depend upon where you're going, who you're talking to, and most importantly, once you do start having the conversation, do you continue having that conversation if you realize someone is not going to meet you at a certain spot? But you give it a little bit of time, all right? You give it a chance. Before I dip out onto the next topic here, or I shouldn't say next topic, but the next factor, let me take a side street real fast. Two types of people, basic, when we're talking about relationships. You have the growth theorist and you have the fatalist. Now, the growth theorist is that person who's going to be all in about the relationship, doing anything that he or she can to make sure everything works out. They're going to do the utmost, whether it's cooking, cleaning, showing up, just making sure they are there for that other person. That growth theorist is all about that other person. Now, the downside of being a growth theorist is that sometimes this individual is so much about the other person, they forget about themselves, which means that now they may be potentially opening themselves up for disappointment if that other person does not share the same value that they're bringing in with them. So at times, that growth theorist stays too long in a relationship that may be ready to have the fork stuck in. You got to be prepared for that. You have to make sure that as you go through a relationship, recognize value. What is it that I always say? Value has no worth unless it's agreed upon, because in the end, we get what we qualify for. Write that down if you need to. The second personality type, now there's multiples, but I'm just talking about two specifically right now. The second one is the fatalist. Now, the fatalist is the opposite of the growth theorist. The fatalist is always looking for a reason that something may go wrong. And if it does go wrong, they want to make sure that they don't invest too much time in it so they don't lose too much of themselves. So what you end up dealing with is someone who's always got their foot half in, half out. And if something goes wrong that first time, they're ready to call it quits unless they're dealing with someone who's able to get them to calm down. Look, we just had a simple argument. I didn't know that you wanted to leave your shoes by the front door. All right, so let's just say you just put the shoes over here. You can leave them by the front door, but don't put them directly in front of the door so somebody trips over them. You have to find some type of compromise there, but you got to work with whoever you're dealing with. Now, what's the downside with the fatalist? The fatalist doesn't spend enough time to see where the relationship is going because they're always trying to get out of there before something goes wrong. So they don't spend enough time in the relationship because of always fearing that something is going to go down the shitter. So, I just need to make sure I have my bags packed and ready to go. All right, so maybe in a different show, I'll go more into personality types, but by all means, you see my email address. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and email me. Matter of fact, in about another month or so, once I get everything set up, I'm going to also set up a phone number to where if anyone wants to do any sessions with me, you can go ahead and give me a call and we'll work it out and we'll just see what's on your mind and we'll go back and forth and we'll just set a standard, all right? We'll set a baseline. So I'm not looking to put any change down or expect anything from anyone right off the bat. What I want to do is just have a conversation, get an idea of the people who are following me, excuse me, have a conversation with you, and we'll go from there. All right. So let me know if you're interested. So what's the third thing that we're looking at here? We're talking about these qualifying factors. The next thing is going to be smell. Now, I've already said before, guys, if you remember from a previous video, you do not want to show up for that first meeting smelling like a gym rack. Right? That is not the move for you. Now, I'm talking mostly about the guys right now, girls, but let's not forget, ladies, same thing. Sight, sound, also smell. You need to make sure that you guys are taken care of as well. Now, I will have to say this. There has not been too many instances that I've gone to meet a girl for the first time and she's just looked raggedy, talked raggedy, and smelled raggedy. I don't think I have ever been through that in my entire life. But that doesn't mean there can't be a first time, right? But don't let that first time be the last time. So just as I say to the guys, ladies, make sure that you do your things that you need to. Maybe some French tips or whatever. You're gonna get your nails done, nothing extravagant, because claws is just something me personally I'm not into. Where your fingernails are all the way out here. No, okay, I'm not cool with that. Again, this is me. I can't speak for everybody, but myself, I'm not looking for the claws. I'm not looking for the snuffleupagus, eyelashes, the red and green hair, different color weave, and all this. No. Um, do I like natural hair? Yes, it depends upon how you're wearing it. Now, me, hey, if you got it in the perm, I'm cool with that. Some girls go Afro puff. I can do a little bit of that Afro puff also. But there's going to be a preference that everybody has. And again, as you get to know each other, if this is the person that you want to be with, you'll start asking, hey, is there a reason why you wear your hair like this? Or do you ever look at wearing your hair a different way? Is it a possibility? But you can't ask those things in the first month to hell, even 3 months possible. You have to let things go to a point to whereas when you're familiar with each other and there's a level of comfort and trust, you can start asking things. Well, maybe I may not wear this particular shirt, or maybe I'll shave more or shave less. Those are things that get worked out through time, but you've got to get through the five sensory phases. So again, smell. I would suggest a cologne that is not bargain basement that everybody wears, but something that is distinctive. I like the smell of sandalwood. On top of that, I like also the smell that you get from a lot of colognes or perfumes, you say, from the Middle East, Dubai specifically. So I am spoiled on my Dubai oils. Nothing I like more than having a distinct smell that not everyone else has. So if you're going to spend a little bit of money for that, by all means do so, but you don't have to. However, still make sure that it's a smell that works with your natural scent, your natural smell. I don't want to say odor, because when you say odor, people think the worst. So whatever your natural scent is, find something that is compatible and works in tandem with that. So let's look at the first three things here: sight, sound, and smell. Those are the basics. Yes, ma'am, I said claws. And Don, don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about. Has anyone, or should I say, let me just throw this at you right quick, Don. Have you ever been out with a guy and you're sitting down and you just happen to just give him a once over? You really look at him and you look at maybe his hands, and they seem raggedy, they seem crusty, they seem dry, nails look like they've been bitten and chewed off. And then eventually this guy wants to put his hands on your leg, on your arm, or whatnot. Has that made you give pause? I mean, literally look back and think, do I really want to be doing this with him? I'm just saying, give some thought. Blanco, yo, man, what's good? Hey, appreciate you stepping in, man. I know it's late, but like I said, I'm just out here just clowning. Whoo. Tell you what, just a second here, folks. You see what I got here. Hey, all is good, Poppy. All is good. Let's do something here just for fun, because I don't normally do this too much, but I'm playing around with StreamYard. So what I want to do is kind of make this a little bit of fun. Let's try this. Since there's some of the regulars here, let me try this. So you guys got to work with me. Like I said, I'm trying out StreamYard. Let me drop this link in here for a second. Let me see what that does. All right, so hey, Pop, if you want, or hey, Don, it looks like there's just the three of us right now. I'm not sure if SD or Drobar is still around, but hey, if you guys want to hit the link for a second, let's mess around with this. because like I said, this is pretty much just a get around show, nothing too deep. So again, if you want, go ahead, drop the link. It's there. Come up, we'll kick it around for a second because I'm only looking at doing this for like maybe another 35 or 40 minutes. But I just want to try and have fun with this StreamYard joint while I'm getting accustomed to it. So if you guys want to swing through, by all means, come on up. If not, hey, there's always another time. All right, so we're down to the last two of what I call the 5-step sensory dating approach factors. We've covered sight, we've covered sound, we've covered smell. The next thing is taste. Now, think about this, folks. Going back to the mid 90s or something along those lines, the early 90s, mid 90s. Remember, if you met somebody out on a Friday night, you could possibly go ahead and meet them again on a Saturday night, but actually walk up to them. We're talking about actually go out and eat, not this thing of where you sit on your phone for like maybe 3 weeks or a month or something like that, just talking on FaceTime or whatever it is you use, because of the fact, well, let's just take it at this approach right now. Let's just see what happens. Now, granted, things are a lot different than it was about 25 or 30 years ago. You didn't have all this craziness where people were disappearing, hacked up and all this nonsense. You could actually meet somebody and go out with them the very next day or within a few days. So, of course, what's the first thing you do? You go out for maybe a meal, something real basic. And after you do that a couple times, then maybe she would invite you over to her place, or you would invite her over to your place. And if you had any skills about yourselves, you cook for her. Now, that is something that really went over well if you knew what you were doing, if you could get in the kitchen and make it hot. So maybe about after one, maybe 2 dates, or hell, maybe even after getting a phone number, hey, you know what? Once you swing over to my place, I'll make something for us to eat. What do you like to eat? Give me an idea. Of course, she tells you, you go out, you grab some food that she likes, but you also do a little bit of extra. You may grab a little bit of extra wine. You may go ahead and get a particular movie. And if you're really feeling yourself, you may get a little sleep shirt just in case you can convince her to stay over. Now, I'm not going to say that worked all the time the first time out the gate, but every now and then, you're going to play your cards, right, fellas? You're going to try your luck and see what comes of it. So I'm not going to act like I'm shy. I know I try. But anyway, if you're a good cook, that's going to work in your favor. Now, again, if you're somebody that she's looked at that she thinks that I can see myself with, you talk the right type of talk, you smell good. Again, you're cooking, you're making waves. The last thing now is going to be touch. That means that if you guys have shared a couple of little hen peck kisses here and there, or some of the good shit, you may be at the point now where you're going to round third base and home we get to that slide-in part of the relationship. Now, if you get down to that part, hey, you're doing your damn thing right about now. Oh, by the way, let me do this. If I haven't done my shout outs here. Forgot about that feature. Yes, Don said intelligent conversation is underrated at times. And I missed out. Same thing here. Drobo, salute to you as well. Poppy, making use of these new features. All right, so now if you got into those 5 phases, right, or should I say those factors, we've gotten down to it, but hey, sometimes you have to now look at, is this the relationship that I want to be in? Hey, I appreciate that, Don. Oh, it's 6:30. That's right. I forgot. It's 12, 1, 2, 3. You're in France, right? Oh, I hate that you got to work on the weekend. But nonetheless, yeah, one of these days, if you get some time, by all means, come on up. So when you know that you've got all of your prerequisites or your precursors, all right, your qualifying factors in place, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. What's the next step now? What are you going to be looking at? The question now is, who are you going to be approaching? Now, when I was under the age of 30, well, hell, even shit, we even when I turned 20 or something like that, one of the things I knew that I wanted to avoid was a ready-made family. Now, back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was no big deal to see some guy um, who was dating, well, I take it back, who was not dating a woman with kids. That's one of the things that the mothers would always tell the sons: hey, don't go out here and get yourself a ready-made family. No, you take the time to raise your own family. So it was important to make sure that if you met a girl, you wanted to make sure that it was no one, or it wasn't a girl who already had kids. That was a no-no, and that was frowned on way back when. Now, of course, it's commonplace now that guys are accustomed to dating women with kids. But back when I was a young man, oh, that was not a standard operating procedure type of deal at all. Oh no. Zyra X, hey, how you doing? Thanks for jumping in. Excuse me. So as I was saying, it was not common for guys to date girls who already had kids. Because generally speaking, when that girl ended up pregnant, she was disappeared. She was out to the country for 9 or 10 months, or she went up north someplace to stay with family or friends. And then maybe the following school year, she might come back. And when she came back, she might have come back without the baby. Or if she did come back with the baby, then the kid was at home with her parents. But the thing here is that as a young man, no, you weren't looking for that, because you wanted the opportunity to be able to start your own family. Now, I've got to put it out here right now. This is not a slap that I'm saying that's being delivered for the single mom. By no means. Make sure I do this. Make sure I get your shine in there. So, what I'm saying here is that ideally, everyone starts out single. Both folks have no children. So that means they just have the responsibility of looking after themselves. But somewhere down the road, eventually people get together. And if you're playing your cards right, meaning that you are wearing the protection that you need to before you start thinking about families or whatnot, or let's just say just basic responsibility, then the kid conversation never came up. So, what if you are doing the right thing? So, the next question is, if I am doing the right thing, then what is the type of situation that I'm finding myself in? Now, I'll put it this way: as you get older, you're going to have to learn to make concessions. All right, that's the caveat that I'll put in there right now. Because when I was a young man of 25, 20, 29, 30, 32, I got married at 33. But prior to that point, I wasn't looking for a relationship with a woman with kids that would go on to where it'd be a potential marriage. Nope. I made sure that if I met a woman and she said she had kids, I would stay in it for as much as I can. But eventually, being the jackass that I used to be, the idea was, well, let me go ahead and just eventually let her down soft. Like, well, what's going on? Well, I'm getting ready to go TDY, and I'm going to be gone for some time. And there's a possibility while I'm TDY, they may move me while I'm gone. So I don't want to leave you in the lurch with that. So it's been good, but thank you. I appreciate the time you spent with me. Maybe we're right, but maybe we'll get together again. Maybe we won't. 10 times out of 10, we didn't. But there was always some type of way that I would ease out of the situation. But at one point in time, I kept a lot of women who had kids on my payroll, put it this way. And the reason I did that is because I knew that she was not going to be out in the street the same time I was, because she had her kids to watch. Now, it was a crafty plan at that point in time, but I'm here to tell you though, sometimes it got expensive depending upon how many kids she had. Now, the most that I did with some girls is where they would have two children. Now you're thinking to yourself, how in the hell are you going to be 22, 23 years old and have two kids? It's a common thing, or at least it was starting to become more common in the mid 90s. So you're talking about an expense where you end up paying for yourself, for her, and however many rugrats you had in the house. So you got to give that some thought here when you're younger. Do you want to be that guy who's already dating someone with kids to whereas now you roll into that scenario where you've got a ready-made family? Now, again, not to besmirch the girls or anything like that, but the question is that if he did not want to date her, let's switch the focus for a second. If he was not interested in dating her, did that make him the bad guy? I was lucky once or twice where a woman said, "Hey, you know what? I realize, you're on your own. You don't want to have a ready-made family. I get it. I wouldn't have done to you what I wouldn't want anyone to do to me when I was single, but I just happened to have, made a mistake. Some girls had actually been married by the time they were 19, divorced by the time they were 22, and had kids. Then there were girls who had never been married, but they messed around with the guy they thought was going to be the dude they were going to be with, and nothing came of that. And what they ended up being were mothers at a young age. Now, I'm not going to throw rocks, as I said, at people who end up in that situation because there's always a factor that comes with that. Marcus, what's good? Nino, what's happening? So there's a question. All right, check this out, fellas. Can a single woman with kids be considered high value? So this is what I've said before in that particular instance. So this is a good question. I like that, Zaire. Um, Value has no worth unless it's agreed upon. So for me to say that this woman is or is not high value is not going to be of any type of value per se, because me myself, I am not looking for a woman with kids. So therefore, to me, there would be no value in it because I want to be able to start from ground zero myself and someone else who does not have children. So in that respect, I can get to a point possibly where I want to be, whereas I will be the father of these kids because they are my kids. Now, that's not to say that somebody else who is willing to make a concession may not find value in that. Maybe she has the right type of smile. Maybe she makes a good conversation. Maybe the kids are well behaved. There's a whole bunch of maybes that go into that. But again, for me to say that this woman is not high value, I can't say that because I would not be thinking of her to begin with anyway, because of the fact that she does have kids. So the question now gets into what type of value would she have to somebody else outside of me? Now, I don't know if any of you guys have or have picked up or have not picked up on that, but I am not one of these guys who subscribes to this current um, distorted version of red pill that you see out here, where it focuses specifically just on the issues of lack of accountability with women. So that is not how red pill started out here. Red pill looked at the unaccountability of society as a whole. It looked at the status quo. It did not look at just one particular element of that. So I'll probably do a show on red pill in the future just so people have an idea of where the original concept was, because where it is right now, this distorted, bastardized red pill, no, that's not the move per se. That's not where it is, but different topic. Uh, all right, so Neil's asking the question, where would the value come from? Well, recall, Nino, I've said this many times before, and I said it before, I say it again. Value has no worth unless it's agreed upon. So the value that comes in that situation would be value that is expressed, reciprocity, or it'd be reciprocal. So let's talk of complementary styles. I don't think anyone does enough of that. So let's think about a complementary style. If you know a guy or let me take it back. If there is a guy who likes children, who does not have children of his own, but he meets a woman that he likes who has children, there's the value. Remember, the value is always going to come from the consumer. If this guy loves children, for whatever reason, he can't have any of his own. He had kids, maybe they're grown now. Let's just say that's a young man of 25 to let's say 35. Okay? That's still 20 years younger than me. But nonetheless, if he is a guy who values children, then a woman who has kids, single woman, no kids, no husband, no guy in the situation, that would be value to him. She would see value in him because of the fact that he's willing to accept her children. Now, there's so many more obstacles that we can throw into this, but we'll just keep it simple for right now. We're not going to be looking at extremes. I'm going to keep the scenario as simple based on the questions that I'm getting right about now. So Nino, I would say the value for her would come from a guy who does not mind being around a woman with kids because he himself likes kids. So we have to get out of our own thought processes and think about it from a different perspective. Just because we're not the ones out here doing the job doesn't mean the job isn't getting done. Just keep that in mind. All right, here's Don. I don't have kids, but I know incredible single mothers. I would agree, Don, that you do have some women who would be considered incredible single mothers. They may have been incredible single women at the time. However, when a woman ends up having kids, whether she has it inside of marriage and then there's a divorce, or if she has kids outside of marriage, she still has children. So at that time frame, or at that point, if there are men who are not looking to date a woman with children, then she has inadvertently put herself at the back of the line. Now, I'm not saying that to be rude or anything along those lines. I'm just stating a fact. If a young man has a preference to meet a single woman without kids, and that's who he wants to date, then that's his preference. And I can't be upset with him about that. She shouldn't be upset with him about that. But the thing to remember is that before she had children, she was also a single person without kids. But people need to think of something. For every single woman with kids, there is a single man with kids as well. So if you got the baby mama, somewhere there is a baby daddy. And that's one of the other aspects. Let me just take a step back here that I don't see red pill, or at least this distorted version of red pill, address enough. We always talk about the red flags when we see a woman with kids, but if the father's not there, the question is he taking care of his kids, or he's out, excuse me, or is he out here making another set of kids? So we have to think of the reciprocity both ways. All right, keep that in mind. All right, so we're at a point here. Let me go ahead and throw this back out because I need to be a little bit more consistent about it. Men chase, but women choose. However, if you happen to be her type, she can be persuaded. People seem to forget this right now. Or even if it's not right now, they forget it altogether. Just because of the fact that we have our biological imperatives, it doesn't mean that we can't do anything to move past it or find a way to exist inside of it to whereas everyone still gets what they're after. Oh, yeah. Question from Nino. Yeah. Don't men choose who they chase? Yeah. We can choose who we chase, but you have to remember just because I choose the chaser doesn't mean that she'll choose to accept me. That's another aspect that I noticed in Red Pill that is not given to consideration. Oh, she needs to get on my program. Don't exist in her world. She needs to exist in yours. All right, it's that type of tit for tat grade school logic that I'm not about myself personally, because we're still dealing with two grown folks. And when you have two grown folks, what do both sides of the equation have? They both have choices that they can make. So, yes, I would say, Nino, yes, as a man, I can decide who I want to chase. So, because of the fact that I can decide who I want to chase, the question is, the reason that I'm chasing her, if I find her attractive, will she find the same level of attraction in me? This goes back to what I said about the 5 step sensory dating approach: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, in that order. I need to be able to provide what it is that I'm looking for. All right. And even exchange, reciprocity, puff, puff, give. Here's some, check out what Zara has to say. Great answer, John. Yes, your value is basically having something of worth, importance, or usefulness that others also deems of value. There it is. Enough said. Again, value has no worth unless it's agreed upon, because in the end, we get what we qualify for. So I can't have any outlandish expectations of a woman. I want her to be educated. I want her to be able to take care of her own, be financially secure. I want her to be able to support any of her needs. But then here I am. I offer nothing except maybe, I'm 6 feet, and, shit hung around my ankles so I can swing it over my shoulder. But there are women who may have that preference, who don't care about what his financial situation may be. But again, it's called choice. I can't put a marker down on that, because again, if you are not someone that I see myself with, I'm not going to spend any time thinking about you. As the same that should come for me as well. If I'm not what she is looking for, she will let me know, because she still has her preference, because of the fact choice still belongs to both of us. I can choose who I chase. However, my chase is of no value if she doesn't see any value in me to allow herself to be caught by me. So that goes to another statement I make a lot of times, and I think it goes on deaf ears. Now, ladies, tell me if I'm wrong. No, yes or no. I'm just putting it out here. But women know who they are looking for before they get out of bed in the morning. All right. So, ladies, put a one in the chat if I'm talking sense. A woman knows who she's looking for before she gets out of bed in the morning. If you happen to get her time, you're the guy she's looking for, or you're an acceptable alternative until the guy she wants comes along. And even then, there's no guarantee. All right. Obviously, I must be talking some sense here. So Zyrex will probably be going with your thought press right about now, because I think Don has already flew in the coop and had to get to work. Yeah, we have to give some thought process to that. Not everything is going to exist around me being the man talking about, oh, hey, Don, he's still here. What happened to sipping your cup of coffee and getting on your way? All right, don't be late for work. Put my name in the midst of it. Tell your boss, my bad. But again, there's always going to be this matter of choice. Nothing annoys me more than when I hear people say some dumb shit. Yeah, Nino, I think I put, if you scroll up, man, I think I put the link in there earlier. Hold up, Nino. Oh, hey, still here. Yeah, so yeah, if you want to swing through for a second, Nino, because again, like I said, I'm just in here just clowning right about now because of the fact that I'm just trying this new StreamYard out, and I wanted to get my money's worth out of this joint. Oh no, Nina's gonna be messy. No, I never. we don't do messy here, so we don't have to worry about that. So there we go. All right.
Yo,
Yo, what's good, Nino? What's up? What's up?
what's going on?
Nothing much, man. You seen Fatty here? Fatty, I dropped the link out to a little bit earlier. He said he was going to advertise the show. I thought he may be able to pull up, but I'm thinking he's probably running from both ends. Pause. That he's probably exhausted. He may already be in bed since it's about what, Don? Is it what, 6 o'clock over there now? Maybe. Oh shit! It's like, well, 10 after 7. Yeah, Fatty may have laid down by now.
Yeah, it's probably like 5 a.m. Where you at?
Yeah, it's
Five or
early.
six.
So man, so hey, I appreciate you for jumping up here, man. This is the first time I've been able to have a decent panel and it not go in and out on me because of the fact I'm not trying to use OBS on a laptop that doesn't have the resources. Yeah. So Fatty and Dwight gave me a rash of shit last week about that. So that's why I'm going ahead and trying this out. But I'm probably going to pay for the full version down the road here. But what's on your mind, man? Let's go ahead, talk it out. But hey, by all means, I don't do messy, but I do conversation. So
No,
what's on your mind?
I don't pay no mind to that, right? I'm not messy at all, but I do. In fact, people say I'm not messy enough. But what I have some questions for, right? Because when she asked that question about does a single mother have value, right?
Mm-hmm.
I asked her if she meant in the sexual marketplace value. You know what I'm saying? Like in the dating market.
Mm.
So I agree with what you're saying. Like to a singular person, you know, under circumstances, that singular person could, you know, find value for whatever reason in a single mother. But overall, right, in the sexual marketplace value, I'm wondering, can she really be high value to like most guys? Because when you think about value, right, it's
Mhm.
like something that's rare, but a lot of people want it. Like gold is something like, you know, it's not a lot of it or it's hard to get, you know what I'm saying? But everybody wants some gold. You get what I'm saying? That's what makes gold or diamonds or something high value. So I'm trying to, that's why I was trying to say, where would you get the value at? Because anything you can get from a woman that has children, it seems like it might be better from a woman that don't have it. They have more time. If you like kids and you want kids, you know, she doesn't have any already, so they can be your kids instead of somebody else's children.
Mhm.
So I'm just looking at it from that aspect. I get what you're saying. Like, for example, I could think a tire is very valuable to me. You know what I'm saying? But if I try to sell the tire to the open market and it's bald, you know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to pay top dollar for it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No one will pay top dollar for it. But from the same perspective that I'm speaking of value, now take away your perspective of it. Now remember, you're talking exactly how it should be viewed, how it's viewed on the open market. But the question is, on that open market, there's always going to be somebody that says, okay, I like this, but I don't like the way the tires are. But everything else seems nice. But there's always going to be that particular aspect. Well, this is good to a certain degree. However, I don't like this. So therefore, it's a buyer's market. Now, it's not again to say that she may not have value, but the question is, or the statement is that she doesn't have value to you. So therefore, you would not find value in that. So I would tell most folks don't get themselves caught up trying to figure out the value of someone that they themselves would never spend time with. Because for whatever value you and I don't see in her, what's this? Have you heard the statement? I'm sure everybody else has heard this statement as well. There's somebody for everybody.
Mm, I don't agree with
Same.
that, but I heard it before.
Yeah. And I have seen there's somebody for everybody. Because I would look, for example, when I was in my fittest shape, about maybe 265, I'm about maybe 10, 15 pounds off of that, but you would never know that looking at me. But still, when I was in my best shape or whatnot, nothing despite would make me snarl my nose up more than looking at someone who did not exercise, that did sitting around eating, 2 cheeseburgers, that have the audacity to have a Diet Coke and then wash it down with some ice cream. And then you see them in the gym just half-assed about it. And then as soon as they're done, they're over at Pizza Hut. Like, what are you expecting to accomplish? Now, this
Mhm.
is me because that is my mindset because I'm not considering the fact that what if this person has is an excellent conversations? Maybe there's something that he has in common that somebody else would find. And then you see someone who's of equal size, equal weight as an individual, but yet they sit down and they have a conversation and there's nobody else around, or it appears like unless it's just them. They only see each other. Now I'm looking on the outside like the hell is going on. But little do I know, maybe they've got something in common because nobody else may see the value in them, but they see where they are. And because they see where they are, they're able to find some level of mutual attraction that they themselves are able to work and build on. Now, I look at that same thing going back to your statement as what type of value does that woman with kids have? Now, to you and I, she may not have any value. Now, it doesn't mean that she doesn't have a value as a human being. She doesn't have any worth as someone to exist. It just means that I would prefer to start from ground zero on my own. So as a result, I'm going to look for somebody that I can do that with. But as I said before, what if there are circumstances at play that we don't consider? As I said before, think of the guy who is maybe unable to have children. All right. Think of the guy who may have been in a relationship with someone and there was unfortunately the death of a child. And because I know what that's like, my son was, excuse me, was a miscarriage. So he never made it into the world. So as a result, you may have people who live under those circumstances. So as a result, if I had a child, lost a child, have not been able to meet someone that I feel comfortable enough with, but eventually I get to that point to where I can do this, and I meet a woman that I like and she has children, hey, that's a complementary style. Let's say that he likes to eat and she likes to cook. Would you say that's a complementary style?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I would never argue against a single mother not having any value at all. There's definitely some value there, right? But the question was, can she be high value?
Again, high value, again, as I said before, that is going to be determined by the person who feels that she has value to him. High
Yeah,
value, low value.
yeah, that I get that. Like, I'm not knocking that either. That's why I was clarifying. Like, was she
Yeah.
asking for the sexual marketplace? You know what I'm saying? Which is more than one person. It's the collective group. You know what I'm saying? For example, they say a high value man is a man that makes well over 100K, 6 foot tall, in shape. If you look at that, that's a small percentage of men, right? You know what I'm saying? Which makes sense. Something that's, you know, a small amount of, but a lot of people want it. That's high value. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, like a diamond. You know what I'm saying? It's, even though there's a bunch of diamonds that are out there, they hide them just to keep the value up. So it's only a certain amount of diamonds that can be bought, which keeps the value up. But everybody, you know, most people want diamonds.
So
You know
we're
what I'm saying?
talking
That's
about
what makes diamonds high value, right?
right.
So
So we're talking about a
that's why I
percentage.
was looking at it from my bad.
Right.
Go ahead.
So again, you're talking about a percentage where you talk about a guy who's 6 feet, six figures, six pack abs. He's useful to the group. He has value to others that are around him, and he makes the people around him greater because of what they all share. So those are those six the factors that Kay Samuels was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole aspect again, yeah, there is that certain amount of group of men who are out there. So with those certain group of men, there's always going to be a certain group of women who want that guy. So you're talking about a group of women, let's say about, I think those guys will say 10%. So you're talking about the guys who are in the 10% of the top end of the earners for the most part.
Mm-hmm. The
So when you start,
80% of the women want.
yeah, so when you start looking at that, the question now is that even though he may be sitting at a point to where he's got that type of value, the question that you have to ask yourself now is that what type of sacrifice are women going to have to make to be in that guy's orbit? So again, this goes back to what you're talking about when you're looking at what is the value to be seen from that. Think of it from this perspective. Now, I can't think Jay Will. I can't think of the white guy's name here, but I remember he was doing an interview where he talked about, excuse me, what the hell is that all about? he talked about, well, I'm in a certain percentage of men out here in the world, so therefore I normally let women know that, hey, I can do some things for you that probably some other man can't. Like, well, if you want to go to Dubai, hey, get you and your kid, get your mom also. I'll take you guys to Dubai. If you want to go down to maybe the French Riviera, we can do that. But you got to understand something. You can't do that with anybody else but me. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you recall this is that point where you start hearing him talk about, oh, he doesn't cheat, he has options. Now, I thought about that one day because, again, as I said before, I listened for the last couple of years to a lot of the red pill conversation, and I'm not a part of that per se because it's not the original red pill. This is a distorted brand of red pill that's out here. But listening to that logic, when you hear that, you hear the concept of a woman more or less having to sacrifice her integrity to be with him. But still, based on the logic, that's what guys would expect if you follow that red pill logic. So I told someone there's a difference between a high value man versus, let's say, a man of value. I know that sounds like a play on words, but again, the value is always going to come from whoever sees it. Now, again, like that diamond, there's a 10% amount of men in the world who fit into this category, which means there's 80% of women looking for that guy. But think of it like this: a high value man will have a woman sacrifice her integrity to be with him, whereas a man of value will tell her, here's how it works. You can be his one of many, or you can be my one of one.
Mm-hmm.
In that instance, where do you think value would exist? Who really sees her value?
Well, I kind of look at it like this, right? Just like let's keep with the diamond analogy, right?
Hmm.
I say it's a nice size diamond. This diamond costs $7,000. Not everybody can afford that diamond. Not everybody is willing to, stack that money up to pay for that diamond. But that don't change the fact that they want that diamond. You know what I'm saying? They may not have no idea of the debt they're gonna put themselves in if they buy that diamond. That's basically what you're saying, right?
Right.
To a degree, right? But there are some people that can afford that diamond. You know what I'm saying? And it won't be nothing to them to get that diamond. So most people can't afford that diamond without affecting them. You know what I'm saying? So I get what you're saying, but that doesn't change the fact that that diamond is valuable. You know what I'm saying? And everybody wants it
The
for
question
whatever
is,
reason.
not everybody wants that diamond, Nina.
No, they can't afford it.
There you go. But let's say even if they could afford it, would they want to pay for it? Remember, now we're talking value, and that's where things get subjective. Now, no one can ever take away from the fact that a Bugatti is going to be, a couple mil. That's a fact of it. Now, at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, let's say a Mercedes SL65 AMG Black Edition. All right, that's going to be about 225, 235 MSRP nowadays, 235,000. All right, then you've got the GT, or maybe we'll say a Saline. I don't know if they make the Saline Mustang. We'll say a Roush Stage 5 Mustang. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you got three cars that can go from 0 to 60. But the thing here is that the Bugatti may do 0 to 60. No, I'll tell you what, let's take away the Mustang. Let's say a Lucid Air, Lucid Sapphire. All right, that's still about maybe 225, all electric. Now, between those three cars, the Bugatti can get to 60 miles an hour from, let's say, do 0 to 60 in about maybe, we'll say 3 seconds. Let's just say in a quarter mile. We'll say in a quarter mile. Then you have that SL 55 AMG, we'll say 65 AMG Black Edition. That joint can do about maybe 3.5 seconds in a quarter mile. And
Mm-hmm.
then you may have that Lucid Air, which is again is the cheapest out of the three. It's still 235,000 or so, but that Lucid Air beats both of them from 0 to 60 in a quarter mile. But the question is that if that guy is driving that Lucid Air, could he pay for that Bugatti? Let's say if he could pay for that Bugatti, but he wants a different type of performance. Just because he has the money doesn't mean that he's going to pay for it. But that doesn't mean that that Bugatti's still in $2 million, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, it's still going to come down to a thing of value and desire for the most part, but mostly value. Just because that joint is 2 million and I have 2 million doesn't necessarily mean that I want that.
Yeah, that's true. And I think sometimes, like when you got a lot of money where you can afford 2 million on a car like that, then it's kind of less valuable to you because you can buy that. You can probably, if you can afford that, you probably can buy all three of them joints. You know what I'm saying? So
There you go. So then think of Warren Buffett. Perfect example. Warren Buffett still lives like he works behind the counter at Sears and Roebuck. And I think Sears has been gone now for about 5-10 years. But nonetheless, that's how his sense of value works. Modest house, modest car, but he's a billionaire.
mm-hmm.
Same thing with any other time I can say it. Well, the kid owns Facebook. Any other time I can say his name. Same thing with him. You know, he doesn't go over the top. He's not extravagant. You know, he's got a decent house, a decent car, that type of deal. But he's a billionaire. Just because I can doesn't mean I should or I will. But
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I can is something that most people will harbor for the most part. Doesn't necessarily mean that they will engage in it. Like I said before, just because I'm not out here doing the damn thing doesn't mean the damn thing is not getting done. Somebody will pay for that $7,000 diamond, but you may have a guy who can afford two $7,000 diamonds, but he may not buy that. He may buy onyx. You know, he may buy jade or something just because it's something that his lady likes. Oh yeah, I like that, but I don't really need this diamond. I can get it for you. Yes, you could, but I don't want that. I don't have a value for that. What if it's someone who comes from simplistic means? I mean, I don't want to get down to what if, but I guess we don't want to beat this to death. But you get what I'm saying, though, Nina. That
Yeah, yeah.
$7,000 diamond is going to be there for the person who wants to pay for it. But for the person who can pay for it but chooses not to, it's a preference. And it goes back to what I said before, people have choices. So no matter where we end up on the spectrum, there's always going to be a choice that we make.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you: you think most people want things that they can't have?
Oh, of course. The thing that determines on whether or not they can have it is if they are in a position to where they can actually work to afford it or afford it based on what they have right now. Otherwise, it's just going to be a desire. Now, depending upon how hard someone wants to work for what they want, they can achieve it. But now here's where we start talking about timelines. So, if you don't mind my asking, how old are you, Nino?
43.
All right, so I'll be 55 in a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because of me being 55 in a couple of months, if we switch gears back to dating, that means that what I wanted at 25 or 35 or 45, I might not be able to do so. It may not be because I don't look a certain way anymore, that I'm not in a certain type of physical conditioning, but it could be the fact that chronologically, I am at an age where some people, well, I'll say women, that some women do not want to deal with a guy at a certain age. So, which means that the same thing as a man of a certain age, there may be concessions that I now have to make because when I wanted to talk to that 25, 35, or 40-year old who didn't have kids, now I'm at a point to where she may be looking at, okay, yes, I would like to have kids, but I want to have it with someone who might be a little bit younger, not 25, not 65, but maybe someone in my own age range. Because what's the conversation that's being made? A man does not have any value until his late 30s, early 40s, because unless he's a uh, coming from college going into the pros for basketball, football, some type of professional athlete, his money comes differently. But for the rest of us, there's going to have to be a process where we work towards our value.
Mm-hmm.
So if he has worked towards his value, he's made the right decisions, he's gotten his education, he's worked those hours, he's put in his time, blood, sweat, and tears, and he's gotten to a point where his value is seen by the people he works around, it's seen in his work, It's seen through how he spends, because he may reward himself for working and getting to where he wanted to be. He is going to have a level of value that he will be able to barter with that woman who is in that same age group as him. Now, granted, if he turns out to be a guy who says, well, wait a minute, you're over 40, now it's a possibility of having kids being a difficulty, or a difficult issue that we may run into. He himself may decide he may want a younger woman because of the fact that the value may be in her youth and the ability to safely have children. So there's always that up and down, and there's going to be that puff puff give. So therefore, if you got a man who's 55 years old who's dealing with a woman who is also in the same age bracket, the question is, could they find a relationship? Yes. Now let's suppose that both of them have had their children. He's been married once, divorced, kids are grown, same thing with her. Or maybe he's never had children, but he doesn't want children. She's had her kids, or maybe she doesn't want kids. Again, complementary style. There's going to be some type of value that can be worked out. But if not, people are going to look and see where they can get the best bang for their buck. And that's always going to be the case. So I wouldn't stress over that too much. I would only look at it from the scenario you just gave. Do people want what they can't afford? Sure, they do. But if there's a way they can work towards getting it, will they? Possibly. But if you get to a certain point in the road, like myself, I'm getting ready to age out of the dating market. So I'm literally at that point to whereas if I say 55, 57, you say 6, and whatever comes behind that, it's pretty much a done deal.
So, man, you said it's somebody for everybody, man.
I just said that. Yeah. Now, when I say a done deal, let me rephrase that. There's a done deal for me looking back behind me in a certain level of dating someone who's 35, dating someone who's 45. Now, there's always that exception. What I'm saying here is that, generally speaking, once we move to a certain age group or age bracket, then we start looking at what's around us at that point in time. But all I'm saying is that the further down the road you get, the more concessions that you may have to make.
Yeah, that's true. That's true for both sexes.
There you go. At some point in time, we're going to have to face that. Hence why I say value has no worth unless it's agreed upon, because you get what you qualify for. So that's the best way that I can put it, man.
All right, well, I ain't gonna hold you, man. I just wanted to come through, ask you those couple questions, man. It was good kicking it.
I'm glad you did. I appreciate it, man. Don't feel that you don't have to not show up here, but I'll try and do this where it's a little bit more earlier and conducive to everyone's timetable.
That's a fact. I gotta get ready to lay it down my daggone self. But good to chop it up with you, John.
Hey, glad you come up, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, so Zyrex, apologize. I meant to keep it up there. So it's better to go off what you personally value in a partner than what society thinks is of high value. Yes, that is precisely what I'm saying here. Is that, again, if you find value in that individual, then that is something that you share with that individual. That is what the two of you have. Now let's think about this when it comes down to the question of what does so and so bring to the conversation or bring to the table. I mean, that is not a conversation that you want to have first day out of the gate. All right. Well, what do you bring to the table? Ideally, it's a trade-off. For example, as a man, what would I be looking for? Now, when I throw this out at you folks, you got to remember now, this is not me quoting any type of distorted red pill or anything like that. This is something that every man looks for. No, it's not just the ideology that's been made as a popular over the last 5 or 10 years, but we're talking about feminine, fit, friendly, depending upon the age, fertile, cooperative, agreeable, discretion, discernment. We're also looking at peace and nurturing. That is something that guys will be looking for. Now, as I said before, there's always going to be some type of sliding bar when we're looking at ages, because the older you get, the more concessions you'll have to make because of the fact you may not be as desirable or as desired as you were in your youth. Now, again, for everything that a woman is expected to be, what is it that the man is supposed to bring? All right. So for us, it should be focus, it should be guidance, direction, discipline, security, stability, masculinity. We also have to look at knowledge, care, and protection. Right now, I just said all those things for men and women off the top of my head because that's what is in my mind. That is what I would look for from a woman. But at the same time, if I'm expecting those things, I need to bring the same in return. I need to bring something that she can look at to say that what is it that I would want in a man. But when it gets down to it, we have some crucial elements we have to think about. We have to think about her peace that is matched with his care and his protection. Now, if she brings peace, he brings care and protection. What you get from that is mutuality. That means that we have both found a level of reciprocity in each other's behaviors. But what is the one thing that I've left off right about now? And the one thing that I've left off is submission. Now, I've mentioned this here and there on certain shows, but I haven't really gone all the way through with it at certain points in time. But let's just go ahead and do that right now because I know that is a buzzword with particular women that you may speak to. Now, when I make the statement of submission, I'm not talking about, bow, heel, yield, come to me, or that type of deal. No, because submission has a price tag for her. That is a choice that she controls. But at the same time, her submission is more equated to her trust. And that's what I'm trying to get guys to understand who've been caught up swimming around in this distorted red pill bullshit forever long here. Her submission is hers to give. She decides. But here's something that I mentioned on Fatty's panel the other day that most people seem to forget. Men submit first. And you have people who don't believe this, but yes, we submit first. That doesn't make us weak. It just means that before things get to the point where we're looking for her submission, we've already given ours. Perfect example. Now, going back to what Nina and I were just talking about value. If I happen to be out and I see a woman that I find to be appealing to me, she meets certain preferences, there's the sight. I walk up to her, there's sound, she's talking what I want to hear. We're talking about smell. She smells nice. Hopefully, I smell nice. Taste. She likes fine dining, or she cooks a good meal. I do the same thing. We get down to touch. Hey, life is going good. I may say, hey, let's lock it down. I think I'd like you to be my girlfriend. So when I make this statement, the question now is going to be, or I shouldn't say a question, but there'll be a statement of, well, if you want to date me, you can't mess with any other women. But as a young man, okay, I would laugh that type of stuff off, and I would make a mess of the situation. I would mistreat her. Now, I've broken hearts and had my heart broken, so it's gone back and forth. Sometimes you just have to get yourself laid out before you recognize that there's a level of respect that needs to be had for someone who is ready to present themselves to you and say that, yes, I will be this to you if you can be this to me. Oh, by the way, Zai, I don't want to think I've forgotten here. Yep, to most men, submission is obedience and silence. But there are women who feel the same way also. And that is not what submission means. That is subservience. Now, when you can walk up and have the conversation that I'm having right now, talking about submission with a woman who understands the difference, she's already cleared about halfway home. And if you can have the conversation with her that it's understood that it is her choice, then that goes a distance also. But I'm not done just yet. Let me go back this up for a moment. So again, if she says to me, yes, I can see being your girlfriend, but you can't date anyone else but me, that is her looking for submission from him. And when I say submission, think about this. It's an agreement. That's all submission is. Acknowledging the will of another person. It's not, bow, heel, yield, come to me. No, it's simply stating that if she expects If I expect her to be my girlfriend, then she expects me to spend time and show her affection, not three, four, five of the women. So, and I agree to do this. All right. So, hey, as a man, like I said, I've submitted first. And there's nothing where I've lost my manhood or, I've lost control of the situation. No, I made a choice. Now, if I felt that she was not worth it, I would accept her, yes, as long as you don't see other women. Okay, yeah, and continue doing it. Do I respect what she's offering? Obviously, I wouldn't if that were this choice I were to make. So let's say for this scenario that yes, he's not going to mess with any other woman because he is focused on her because he is seeing in her the woman that she is that can be the wife that he desires. All right, so let's move forward. Now the question is asked, whereas he is looking for her submission, the same way that she is looking in him, or should I say, the same way that he is looking in her to see the woman that could possibly be his wife. She is looking to see in him the man that would be her husband. And as I said before, look at her submission as being her trust, which means that he needs to be everything that he's alluding to, that he's saying that he can be, in order for her to be comfortable enough to realize that this man is going to do the best he can to provide for me, to protect and to care. And if he does that, again, don't look at it submission as being bow, yield, heal. No, her submission is hers to give, which means that it is her trust. If she trusts what he's saying, then her submission can be gained, but only through his actions that he shows her. Now, here's the caveat. I can see right now, whereas I'm not saying this is you, Zyrex, but there are women who say, well, what if he just said that just to get her attention? And now when they get together, he mistreats her. It's like, stop the bullshit. All right. It's either all in or all out. Now, that is what's scary to some people because of the fact that there's actually a level of or an amount of skin that has to be provided. See, this goes back to when I hear people talk about 50-50. I tell folks I don't deal with 50-50 because 50-50 means that both of you are half in and half out. That means that at 50-50, you've got a partner, all right? You've got a roommate. So eventually, do partnerships end? Yeah, sooner or later, there's partnerships will fall apart. Sometimes or eventually, roommates decide, you know what, I want to live on my own. All right, so be it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but when it comes to a relationship, there needs to be a thought in that. To where now again, this is just John Henry right now. Let me throw that caveat out there. This is just my perspective. So when I hear people getting ready to get married, and I hear certain women, and because guys don't normally say this, but I hear certain women say, "Oh, I'm marrying my best friend." No, you do not marry your best friend. At least this is John Henry's logic. I say this because what happens sometimes when you get upset with your friend? All right. If anyone's still there in the chat, I want you to think about this. What happens if you get upset with your friend? You may stop taking their phone call. You see, bring, you just let it go to voicemail. You may call them back, or you may text back instead of calling. Tell me if I'm wrong. All right. Who's done that? All right. You may just stop talking to your friend. If you see them while you're out, you may go in another direction. And there's the last one. Yep. Stop talking to them or, ignore them. Yep. See? Called it. So that's why, to me, I do not believe in people marrying or saying that they're marrying their best friends, because the person that you marry should not be your friend because of the reasons that I'm mentioning right now, unless there's some way that you can eclipse and get past that. The person that you're marrying, you need to look at them as, this is my spouse. This is my husband or wife. This person is my mate. So therefore, I don't get to take a day off. I don't get to just ignore you and just walk past you because I'm upset because I'm treating you like my friend. No, you take that shit someplace else. By no means am I going to be treated as if I am your friend. And this is something that my ex-wife and I had issues with when we got to a certain point in the relationship before we ended up calling it quits. I had to let her know I'm not your friend, I'm not your pal, I'm not your buddy. I'm not the person that you spill tea with. Those are what your girlfriends are for. I'm the man who cares, who protects, who defends. No one can say anything about you that I will believe until I talk to you first because you let me put my ring on your finger. That means that your word is what I hear first. Your voice is what gets my ear, my attention, that sways me. I don't profess to be the best person in the world, but damn it, I will not be the worst if I can help it. I want to see you laugh, but sometimes I might make you cry. But understand if I make you cry, then I will work to make sure that that smile comes back to your face. I was happy before I met you, but having you with me means now I am overjoyed. That is what happens when you have a spouse and you have a mate. Again, that's might be my perspective. So I could be wrong in that, but by all means, let me know if you think differently. So to wrap that part up, again, the value that comes from that relationship is going to be something that is seen that both people can share. That becomes a level of reciprocity. And you can't have that reciprocity if there's a lack of value that is not exchanged between the two. But in the end, if you get to that point of mutuality, then that means that there is a level of submission that he's shown to her. She respected that because he paid attention to her, stayed with her, showed her that she was the only one he wanted to pursue. And in the end, she showed a level of submission to him in exchange, i.e., think of it as being a level of trust that he earned. He earned her trust through his actions, which means that she could show submission to him as a result because he showed that he could be the man that would be her husband through his actions. Everybody wins, wouldn't you say? So it all comes down to that level of approach. Now, just speaking of approaches here, let me just throw this last bit in. When the relationships get started, you've got to set a boundary. At some point in time, it can't be a thing of as the relationship goes on, you just start making things up. Or I don't even want to say make things up, but you just start having conversations and adding boundaries or red flags that should have been done right up front. For example, as soon as you get to a point to where the relationship is going to be exclusive, just the two of you that's leading to a marriage situation, you got to have a boundary. And what's common? What are two things that you can think of right off the bat? If you are unfaithful to me, I'm done. If you put your hands on me, I'm done. We'll just go with those two right there. These are two boundary breakers that should be right at the very beginning. It shouldn't have to be a discussion about that because we know where that red line is. And nothing irritates me more than if I'm watching a panel and I hear people ask the question, well, all of a sudden, years into relationship, she just goes out and has an affair. Just that no, that doesn't happen. That I don't really see that happen. That's something that just that just doesn't happen. And I'm listening to these type of things. And I'm realizing that obviously you don't know people as well as you do. First and foremost, if someone were to just all of a sudden just have an affair on their partner, the question that I'm asking is that if there were problems earlier on in the relationship, let's say this after 6 or 7 years of marriage, uh, I'm just picking one, not one because of the man or the woman, but I'm just saying the woman. She has an affair. Now, the question I would be asking is that was there some point in time where it was made known that she was unhappy about something? Did she give him the chance to correct anything? Now, here's the other side of that coin. During the course of that time before she had an affair, was his behavior towards her? Was he neglecting her emotionally? Was he being abusive verbally, mentally, physically? There's a whole rash of questions that someone could ask. But when I hear somebody say, oh, that no one just does that out of the blue, that just makes no sense. No, you're right. Some things are not done out of the blue. Some things are years in the making. But the point still stands here is that if the statement was made that if you have an affair on me, we're done. The question is, did she have an affair because of certain actions from him that pushed her to it? Or did she have an affair because she decided that I don't like what's happening in the relationship anymore just because I want something different? And she made a choice. And if there were problems, did not consult him to give him the opportunity to fix things. So that all goes into one basket that if there comes a point in time where you have therapy sessions, where you have couples therapy, that's one of the questions that's going to be asked. When this issue first came to be, was there any opportunities that he was given to make amends, if any? Now, therapy in and of itself is only effective as the effort put into it. But when you start talking about infidelity, hey, that's just, you pretty much just cut a hole in the floor. Even worse if there's physical abuse, right? But nonetheless, what I'm saying is that there needs to be some type of boundaries that are put in place before things get that far. Because once it's exceeded, the conversation is, you knew what the boundary was. I told you this because it would hurt me if you behaved or if you did this. You went ahead and did this. Now, let's imagine that there's no fault on his part whatsoever. She just decided, you know what? I just don't like the relationship anymore. She's maybe making comparisons between him versus the new guy that's got her attention that she's having her affair with. And eventually she just decides, you know what? I just want to go. Maybe he's done nothing wrong at all. So the question is, does he have to take responsibility for what has happened? The answer is no. If he has been the attentive spouse, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm there when you are not able to because maybe we had children, maybe you were sick, you were injured. I took over the things. I did my part to ensure that the relationship was able to be sustained. And you still did this? Nothing that you can do about that except let it go the way that it goes. Just understand that if you did what was required of you, you should not feel any level of guilt. Now, I will also say on another side of the coin, um, what is that saying? That when someone just goes nuts because of the fact, heat of the moment. You know, when someone just goes this, they see red and they just lose their shit. Perfect example. A woman caught her husband of 20 years having an affair with another woman. The daughter was in the car when the mother ran the husband over 3 or 4 times. I think, crime of passion. That's what I was thinking of. Crime of passion. This woman had dedicated her entire life to that man. This is a true story. She had dedicated her entire life to this man, had children with this man, and this guy was having an affair. Now, what made it so bad is that she didn't know what she'd done wrong. She hadn't been told that there was anything wrong at all. She just caught her husband having an affair with another woman. And she was so upset because of all the time and love she felt that she put into it that she ran over him, backed up, and went forward again and drove off with their daughter in the car. In that one moment, out of the blue, she just snapped, did something completely out of character. Oh, yeah, this is a real thing. But as I'm saying here, people can do things out of character one time. It just so happens this one time was fatal. But again, she was beside herself from all the love, care, attention, trust, reciprocity, everything that she gave to that man. And that man was sleeping with another woman. Zyrex, always best to lay your cards out up front, as in statin boundaries or boundaries, values, goals, and expectations. If he wants to date still, then it means he's accepted, respects, and will abide by them, as I will do the same. There you go. Reciprocity, puff, puff, give, right? I mean, in the end, that's all that we can expect from each other. The fact is that if I value you enough to show you attention and you show me the exact same amount of value, then we may have found something. The next thing that comes across is how well we can sustain that. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to put down here, because I know I'm keeping you folks up. I know it's got to be what, almost 2 o'clock in the morning. Again, I didn't expect it to go this long, but I would like to think that we're having a good conversation. So if anyone who's still there, by all means, put a one in the chat if you think this is a good conversation. And for anyone who catches this on a replay, same thing. If you think the conversation has been worthwhile, please put a one in the chat. So this goes back to the perspective of guys here, because I don't think women spend a lot of time dealing with coming up with pickup lines to tell men. So let's look at this thing when we talk about guys having this dominant male perspective or dominant mindset or male mindset, whatever the hell that these pickup artist dudes have out here. You can only do so much with the line someone is giving you that you can try. I want everyone to go back and think of the 5-step sensory dating approach that I talked about. And it literally just exists around the 5 human senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. Those are your winners right there. That is all you need to focus on. Now, of course, you have other factors that come into play. I want to speak of them right now. So, the question I have is, does everyone recognize the difference between a pickup artist versus a relationship advisor? A pickup artist, think of a comedian who tells one-liners. Now, I'm sure everyone has seen comedians who do nothing but one-liners. It's like, how does this guy stand here for a whole 2 hours and it's just one-line joke after the other? All right, funny as anything. But the thing here is that with those one-liners, they're all random. They don't build. They are their own separate entity, which means that you're always getting fed something. Now, as a comedian, that's hysterical to listen to one-liners. However, if you are in a situation where you're dating or you're trying to make your way towards establishing a relationship, how many one-liners does a person have to tell before they get someone to actually get with them, get on their page or whatnot? But still, what type of foundation do you have? Now, granted, something is going to come of that. But when I think of people who teach folks one-liners, again, these pickup artists, I see this person gearing up the person listening to this for nothing more than situationships and entanglements. I say that because with these one-liners, they're rapid fire. They don't build on each other. It's just, oh, hey, when you get around, forgive me, any ladies out there when I say this, but the same guys who are passing out this pickup artist information, They also talk about, man, these bitches be out here. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You're talking to these guys about trying to get them into a mindset, this dominant male mindset or whatnot on how to get women. You shouldn't be in her world. She needs to be in yours. I mean, this tit for tat grade school shit. What is it that you're preparing this person for? Now, it's almost as if somehow a relationship is going to pop up out of this, get your mind right, man. You need to make sure that she gets in your program. It's your rules that exist. She needs to abide by. Wait a minute, that's a grown person. That is a grown woman. Now, regardless of what Mr. Let Go may say, because he and I went round and round a few times about this, women are not kids. No, neither are men. But we have adults who act in childish behaviors or exude childish behaviors at times. But still, these are individuals who have to make choices. So getting back to what I'm saying here, the pickup artists to me, if we look at a comedian, they are like one-liners to me. Now, when I think of a relationship advisor, I think of comedians who have the ability to tell a story. For you to listen to them talk about a day that they went over to a friend's house, they walked in and they said, "Oh, the house smelled like Thanksgiving in the middle of July. It's a, I could smell the ham, I could smell the turkey, I could smell macaroni and cheese or something like that." And the person is standing there, setting the joke up, and you can actually smell what they're talking about. Then they said that they walked outside, went to the backyard. It was a warm summer day. Standing outside is maybe 75, 80 degrees. And as you're thinking about standing out in that backyard that, let's say, is a beach backyard looking at the ocean, you can feel the heat on your skin. You can imagine the heat on your skin. And then as you're listening to this story, as you walk back in the house, you're walking through the house, through the hallway, looking at different rooms, looking at pictures in the rooms. There's a warmth, there's family. You go into the bathroom, wash your hands for dinner, and then you come back outside. And then for whatever reason, you end up kicking her in the woosie. What? Why'd you kick her in the wing? Well, you kicked her in the nay because she didn't have enough macaroni for you. That was a joke that Dave Chappelle told. I didn't want to tell too much of it because, again, that's not my joke. But you get what I'm saying here. The ability to tell a story. That's thing is that there was a foundation that was built, if you understand what I'm saying here. Build a foundation, and then you add to it the dinner, the smells, the heat against your skin, walking through the rooms, the different pictures, that to me is what a relationship advisor does. They advise you on how to build a meaningful relationship. So at some point in time, when you're talking to someone about a relationship, what does it take to make it stand? How do you go about approaching it? If you don't hear words such as communication, compromise, consideration, concern, balance, if you do not hear any of those in a 2 or 3 hour session, you're going to have to ask yourself, what information are you getting right now? Those are the basics that you should look at to form a foundation. And with that foundation, that means that you're going to have a steady floor to walk on. And then the next thing you need to do is to put up your walls, and you want to do that together. All right. Hey, Ray, back again. If she don't fit, she must go. Amen. All right. So again, I appreciate everyone for stepping by with me. And again, this is just me testing out this StreamYard, but I think that everything went well. So by the way, if you heard me all right, put a 1 in the chat if you could hear and it was clear and that there was no chopping and breaking up. So that means that I'm probably going to go ahead and pay for the full version. All right, folks. Well, I guess we'll just go ahead and call it a night right there. I've already held you guys up a little bit longer than I expected to, but I'm hoping that this was a worthwhile conversation that we shared. Once again, I appreciate this. So let's go ahead and end it out right here. Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what I've got going on. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. And again, I appreciate you guys having the conversation with me. To everybody in the chat, Zyrax, Ray Hamna, also Nino, thanks for coming up. Top Cat, I appreciate you for showing up when you did for a hot minute. Apologize for not acknowledging you sooner. Also, Don, as always, you're faithful. You come here. I thank you for being a strong supporter. Matter of fact, you're one of my first supporters. Marcus, also thank you for dropping through. I appreciate that. Poppy, I know you came in early, but you probably had to get out and get on with today. I understand that. Was good back also. And also, last but not least, Drobo, you came in early, but I still thank you for showing up nonetheless. All right, everybody, that's my spill. I appreciate you for joining me for this. Thank you much, and I'll see you in the next video. Good night.